What is gratitude? Gratitude is more than being thankful. Gratitude can actually change your perception of the world. More than that, gratitude is a spiritual discipline. Paul tells us, be grateful in all circumstances. Well, that doesn't mean that we aren't painfully aware of hurt and hardship. It means that within the hurt and hardship, we find a bit of light that glimmers, perhaps faintly at first. But as we work towards seeing the good, the mercies in our lives, that light grows stronger. When we intentionally practice the discipline of gratitude, we increase our mindfulness. We become more present and start noticing more often what is good in our lives. For us as Christians, gratitude is about recognizing God's grace in our daily lives. Monk Brother David Steindl-Rest says, "It is not happiness that makes us grateful. It is gratefulness that makes us happy." We ask you for your joys. That's an opportunity to express gratitude for those things that we've been blessed with each week. Expressing gratitude not only includes expressing it to God, but to the world around us. Gratitude is not just a feeling, it should be an action. I think we should be weird for Jesus. I think we should be weird for Christ, so that people know that we're different, and that when you fill in that, they'll know we are Christians by, that when it pertains to this little corner of Bethesda, that would be, we know they're Christians by how much they love, how much they thank, how great an attitude those people have. There are so many opportunities to not only acknowledge those things we're grateful for, but to express our gratefulness to others. Let us be intentional about giving thanks with a grateful heart and showing others how grateful we are. Amen. We begin this morning by intentionally thinking about what we're grateful for. We looked at gratefulness, and then we looked at how we show our gratitude. It shouldn't be much of a surprise that folks are grateful for family and friends, for health, and for our church. It isn't a surprise either that there are fewer sticky notes on the showing gratitude side than there are on the being grateful side. Often we can acknowledge our gratitude, but less often express it through action. We'll talk about that as we move on. But let's start with some definitions. What is gratitude? Well, let's start with a definition from Robert Emmons, one of the world's leading scientific experts on gratitude. He says that gratitude has two components. The first is the affirmation of goodness. We affirm that there are good things in the world, gifts and benefits that we have received. The second component, he explains, is when we recognize that the sources of this goodness are outside of ourselves. We acknowledge that other people or a higher power gave us many gifts, big and small, to help us achieve the goodness in our lives. Gratitude is more than being thankful. Gratitude can actually change your perception of the world. More than that, gratitude is a spiritual discipline. You see, life is filled with goodness, whether we acknowledge it or not. When we're attuned to the goodness, when we recognize the goodness, then we become filled with gratitude. And as I like to say, our souls overflow with gratitude. Basic gratitude is about feelings. The spiritual discipline of gratitude moves from mere feelings to action. We move from experiencing gratitude to expressing gratitude. Now let's be clear about something. Being grateful, being more attuned to what is good in our lives, does not mean that the reality of life is all green pastures and overflowing cups. The world is a hard place. It includes grief and hardship, tragedy and frustration, and more. But when we increase our gratitude, when we intentionally look for the good, for the bright spots, for the positive, we begin to be grateful. Not in spite of the hard edges of life, but within them. Paul tells us, be grateful in all circumstances. Well, that doesn't mean that we aren't painfully aware of hurt and hardship. It means that within the hurt and hardship, we find a bit of light that glimmers, perhaps faintly at first. But as we work towards seeing the good, the mercies in our lives, that light grows stronger. It illuminates our lives and it enables us to shine that light on others. When we intentionally practice the discipline of gratitude, we increase our mindfulness. We become more present and start noticing more often what is good in our lives. For us as Christians, gratitude is about recognizing God's grace in our daily lives. This is where I love to go to the Gospel of John. For throughout the Gospel, John tells us how the Word becomes flesh and lived in the world. In the very first chapter of John, he tells us that he and others saw Jesus' glory, full of grace and truth. That although no one has seen God, it is through Jesus that God was made known. John tells us that from Jesus' fullness, we all receive grace upon grace. And then, John proceeds to show us what grace upon grace looks like, what abundance looks like, and what God is like throughout the rest of his gospel. He shows us an abundance of wine at a wedding, an abundance of food on a hillside, the abundance of love and care in every healing. And so gratitude is looking for God's grace in our lives. It's finding those bright God spots. There are many ways to make gratitude a practice. Journaling every day or once a week. Creating a gratitude list that you post in a place that you can see each day. Writing gratitude slips each day and putting them in a jar, and then at some point, once a month or at the end of the year, taking those out and reading them to see what it was during the year where you were grateful. All of those are gratitude practices. The key to writing about gratitude is to be detailed and really bring the gratefulness to life. Rather than, I'm grateful for a beautiful day, what is it about the day that you're grateful for that has made it beautiful? Is it the weather, the wildlife, the flowers in bloom, the clouds, God's creation? Once you start intentionally writing down those bright spots, it may surprise you how much there is to be grateful for. Benedictine monk Brother David Steindl-Rest says, "It is not happiness that makes us grateful. It is gratefulness that makes us happy." There are many studies that tell us that gratefulness not only makes us happy, but has other benefits. A 2014 study found that grateful people are physically healthier and experience less pain. Another study showed that gratitude reduces emotions such as depression and envy, self-pity and anger. When we look for the bright spots in our lives, we become more focused on what is good in our lives and less focused on the negative energy, the negative emotions that involve our feelings toward others. A 2011 study showed that gratitude even helps you sleep. When people spent 15 minutes writing in a gratitude journal before they went to bed, they slept better. I imagine that works because you're focusing not on all the stuff that went wrong in your day or the things that you're worried about and anxious about, but all the good in your day. So being grateful, finding those bright spots in our lives, seeing the grace upon grace of God, that's all good. But it shouldn't stop there. You see, being grateful is only part of a spiritual practice. Gratitude needs to be relational, not just a private feeling on our part, but an action that we take. We not only experience gratitude, we express it, we share it. In our readings this morning, we saw Hannah's expression of gratitude in that beautiful and very ancient poem. Hannah was the prophet Samuel's mother. She suffered infertility, a condition that was seen not as a medical condition, but as a curse. A woman's worth was measured in providing offspring. She prayed to God to give her a child, promising to dedicate that child to service in the temple. And when she conceived and gave birth, she fulfilled that promise. Her prayer is an expression of her gratitude to God. Of course, like Hannah, we should express our gratitude to God in prayer. Each week we ask you for your joys. That's an opportunity to express gratitude for those things that we've been blessed with each week. Expressing gratitude not only includes expressing it to God, but to the world around us. Gratitude is not just a feeling, it should be an action. Expressing gratitude is something we should work into our daily living, each and every day. You can start with saying thank you. Sure, we say thank you when someone opens the door for us or hands us our coffee order, or at least I hope we do. But who do we take for granted? Who do we forget to thank? Who is it in our lives that we don't think to thank? And not, but to tell them why, and that we're grateful for them and why we're grateful for them. Verbally, by email, or even by that old-fashioned method, a written note. When we think about God's grace and abundance, think about how we, in our everyday lives, spread that grace to others. Do we go out of our way to show our gratefulness? If we are grateful for a delicious meal in the restaurant, how often do we compliment the chef? Even if that chef is busy and can't come out to the dining room, have we ever sent a little note with our server that says, "That meal was delicious, thank you"? It's those little things that we can do that change the world. As I look at our world today, with the hate and the anxiety and the roughness, the rough edges of our world, I think, how might we change that world If we were so grateful and express that grace every single day, whether we're in the grocery store, whether we're at a restaurant, whether we're at our retirement homes, whether we're in our neighborhoods, and of course in our church. But think about the reaction of the world if we expressed those positive things all the time. First of all, I'll tell you, people will think you're crazy. They'll know that you are different, but that's the point. That old song, "They'll know we are Christians by our love," has never been more important. Because today when we say they'll know we are Christians by, sometimes I'm afraid to fill in that blank. In the days of the brand of Christianity being sullied in this country, what if we tried to change that? What? And you say, well, we have 30 people here. That's 30 more than we started with. They would know we were different. They would say, those people from Bethesda United Church of Christ, they are very strange. They're very strange. Every time I talk to them, they're telling me thank you for something. Do you know that they sent a note back to the chef to say that the salad was really good? They are really weird. I think we should be weird for Jesus. I think we should be weird for Christ, so that people know that we're different. And that when you fill in that, they'll know we are Christians by, that when it pertains to this little corner of Bethesda, that would be, we know they're Christians by how much they love, how much they thank, how great an attitude those people have. Let's think about that. Let's think about that. Expressing gratitude might be as simple as just engaging with the people we come in contact with, especially in these days where we do less and less in person. If we're grateful that there's still folks who provide us personalized service, we should say so. We should say so. There are so many opportunities to not only acknowledge those things we're grateful for, but to express our gratefulness to others. Let us be intentional about giving thanks with a grateful heart and showing others how grateful we are. Amen.